Okay, in this first tutorial that we're going to get started with in this crash course for Adobe Photoshop CC, it's going to be just navigating some of what you see on the screen. So first and foremost, you're going to want to know how to get an image inside of Adobe Photoshop. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and click on File and hit Open. And then you're going to want to navigate to wherever your photo may be. I'm just going to pick one from my download section, and let's see if I can find one here that I want to deal with. And let's pick this one. And okay, so now I was able to open my image. So here's another important thing. You want to know what kind of images you're opening. Notice that the title of my image, which happens to just be a number, is followed by this .jpg. What you want to know is that different images can be imported into Photoshop. So things like .jpg, which stands for JPEG, or a .tif, which stands for a TIFF file, or a .bmp, which would be a bitmap, or a .eps, or a .png file. You'll notice that with the .png files you typically have a transparent background, and so all these different kinds of files can be brought into Adobe Photoshop. But also, let's look at this. If I want to save this image once I'm done with it, I can go File, Save As, and then I can save it as all of these different options. So a Photoshop file, a large document format, a bitmap, CompuServe GIF, a DICOM, a Photoshop EPS, an IFF format, the JPEGs, multi-picture format, PCX, so on and so forth. And what I'll do is I'll kind of talk about some of these different files later on in this crash course to tell you, you know what, why would you want to use a PNG over a bitmap? Or why would you want to use a JPEG over a TIFF? So pay attention to that lesson later on. It's going to be towards the end of this crash course, so that you can understand why you'd want to save a certain file a certain way. But first and foremost, I just want to talk about this Photoshop file to begin with as we go along with the rest of this course, so you know how it works. I would always save a version of your image as a Photoshop file. And see how it changed that to PSD? What that does is it memorizes whatever you've done to an image inside of Photoshop, so the next time you open it, you can go back and you can see all of your layers, which we're about to talk about, and it will also remember how many back spaces you can go, so how many steps in history you can go back in your saved image. So whenever you save an image outside of Photoshop, remember you want to do a PSD file and one of these other types for whatever your end use is going to be. Okay, so I've saved my file as a PSD file, and let's get started. We're going to cover just a few of these tools, and if you want to learn all these tools, you can visit my other course called Learn Photoshop, All 72 Tools. So let's just cover the basics. This is going to be the Move tool. And what that does is it allows you to move objects inside of your screen, and if you hold down, you'll notice that these little marker points come up, and it'll say 79.2 by 154.3. What that really is giving you are coordinates for where your Move tool is located on the image. So if I'm up here in the left-hand corner, it's going to be 0, 0. So for almost every single Adobe Photoshop program, your image is always going to be at 0, 0 in the top left-hand corner. And that's important to remember. It keeps saying this because this layer is the only layer here, and it's my locked layer. So I'm just going to make a quick box here. So let's start a new layer. This button right down here. And voila, you can't even see it on here because it's invisible right now. And I want to show you the power of what can happen here with the Move tool, and then we'll get into layers in the next lesson. So if I take this and I have my turquoise color selected, and I just start drawing. Okay, Now watch this. I am no longer on the actual image, this woman in the background. I'm actually on the layer of this paintbrush that I just moved around. So I can take that and I can move that wherever I want. Pretty cool, right? It's because it's on an invisible layer. So I can do all the movements that I want with this tool right here called the Move tool. So anytime you want to move an object on an image, if it's on a different layer, feel free to grab the Move tool and move it about. Okay, move on to the next tutorial if you're ready to learn about layers.